So now I'm moving on to the types of funding. As I was mentioning just now, there are a couple of types of fundings, mainly loans, subscription of shares, share sale, and convertible notes. Okay, so yeah, sorry, back to this slide first. When it comes down to it, if you really need to as I mentioned, you need to determine what you want to reach for, right? So you first need to determine how you want to start up your company, whether or not you want to go through with a partnership, a private limited company, or a sole proprietorship. So when you have a sole proprietary company, or I guess an enterprise, it is all you. You cannot sell shares, you cannot issue shares, because it is all under your name. When you have a partnership, then you have just yourself and another person, and you both share and bear the same responsibilities together. Only if you are really looking into having investments, then you should go for a private limited company where you can have shares to be issued and sold where you require funding. Okay, so now going back to this slide, I think there are more than these types of fundings, but these are a general view of, because you can always create how you want an investment to be. So this is the 4 types I could think of where you can get funding from anyone, be it angel investors, VCs, banks. These are all types of funding that you can get for your startup. So you can have loans where it's very direct. You just get a loan, you get a percentage, how much you have to return, how much you have to pay back, what is the duration. That's very simple. Then the subscription of shares, which are where you issue new shares to an investor. So when you subscribe, when you issue these shares, the investor agrees to your shares, and the pricing of your shares pumps in the capital, pumps in the money to you. Then you issue new shares, and it will dilute your holding of the company. So for instance, if you have 100 shares to your name, and then MoneyMatch wants to acquire 20% of your company, so you would need to issue 24 shares to MoneyMatch, whereby it becomes, you have to issue 24 shares, around there. So you have to issue around 20% of shares, so to have that kind of equity holding onto your company. And the other one is share sale, where, as I mentioned just now, if you have 100 number of shares, you can sell those shares to MoneyMatch, where it's an easier calculation. You sell 20 shares to MoneyMatch, and MoneyMatch acquires 20 shares, which means that MoneyMatch will have 20% of your company. And then the next one is convertible notes. These convertible notes are generally like sort of like an IOU. If, let's say, for instance, iCube wants to invest in me, right? iCube, then I tell iCube, okay, I'll issue you a convertible note where you pay me 500K. So this 500K right now is worth around 2% of my company, okay, for instance. But when I do a funding round, and then my company is valued at 5 million. So 500K will be worth 10% of my company then. Then I will then iCube will give me back the convertible note and say, hey, remember I gave you a 500K investment? So I say, okay, I get that this is the convertible note that I issued to you. I will now convert these shares, this 500K into shares for you. So then you will still subscribe to the shares. But the best thing about convertible notes are that iCube can tell me that, hey, I don't want to convert. I want my 500K with interest. Then I will have to pay back to iCube whatever money that they have asked, that I've gotten from them, including any other terms that are inside it. I think from a startup's perspective, why convertible notes are good is because you can determine your valuation later. So when you convert when you issue a note, it doesn't have, like I said just now, right? 500K, assuming it's valued at around 30% of my company, but because my company then is valued more, then it becomes only 10%. So there is a form of I guess, a time frame where you can actually boost your valuation that helps out in the valuation of your company, and thereby having a lesser stake onto the investor. Okay, so how the negotiation will be when you want to negotiate for your investments. These are the big terms that I think you should take acquiescence of. First of all, most importantly, is redeemable shares. Okay, so let me just tell you a brief overview of how it works. When you go for an investment with a venture capital or angel investor or what have you not, they will come in with a legion of lawyers, and they're gonna tell you like, oh, this is our standard contract. Of course, as a very aspiring startup entrepreneur, you're like, oh, can lah, I'll sign. But then all these terms carry a very different meaning, and all these terms can make or break your company. For instance, redeemable shares. Redeemable shares, this one, is the kind of shares that no company should issue out, because what redeemable shares are shares that you can, the investor will hold, and then they say, hey, these shares are valued at this. They can force the company to buy those shares back at the valuation that is pinned to those shares. So it can be that the redeemable shares are pinned at current valuation. Then you are really, really in a bad place. Let's say, for instance, you're expanding and you are like growing, your company reach Southeast Asia market, you just have enough funding, and all of a sudden, one of your biggest shareholders say that, hey, you give me redeemable shares, so now I want to redeem them back. Then that is a very, very bad, it will really cause you a lot of concerns, because a redeemable share normally can be redeemed at any point in time. Then you go to preference shares. Preference shares are generally shares which are, how would you call it, have preferential rights to them. So there's things that, like, there's things that you need to have a preference majority to vote on and to decide on before you can proceed with anything. So as you issue preference shares, you also have to make sure that that these come with preferential rights, and they get like the first bite into the pie when you get to sell your company. They can determine whether you can sell your company or not, because there are rights that are attached to those shares. Buyback clauses are generally good for you as a company, because you can buy back those shares as and when you determine that let's say you're doing very, very well, and then you're like, okay, I want to get back more of my company. Then you can buy back more and more shares. Then if you want to list or something, that is also good for you. Undertakings, you need to ensure that you do not undertake. Undertake means it's like a promise. If you undertake too many things and you say that I undertake that we will get to be profitable within 2 years, and you do not become profitable in 2 years, then you are in a breach of contract, and then you could probably be sued. Put options are options where they can put to you as a founder the shares. It's something like a buyback, but it is the opposite way, where the investors can force the founders to buy the shares back at a certain price. That of course also that would cause the founders to have problems with their fiscal health, because this is most of the time it is a personal liability. And on top of that, there are board seats and percentage control. These are all things that you have to bear in mind, that although yes, we would love money, we would love to have more and more money into the pocket and into the capital of the company, but as you lose more and more board seats and as you lose more and more control, you will thereby lose more and more autonomous decision making onto your company as well as a founder. And then, so this is my final slide. My general take of this is, like I said just now, these agreement templates, right? They are obviously drafted by the lawyers who are representing the VC firms. They are represented by expensive lawyers, and they're represented by very experienced lawyers. Of course, they are coming in, they're looking at you as a possible investment. And when it comes to investment, they want their returns. You need to ensure that all these type of terms that you enter into do not, sorry for my language, you up at the end. Because if you cannot let go of your shares at the end, or you cannot sell your company to a possible acquisition, then you are really, really impeded from doing anything that you want. Because like let's say you need a majority voting onto a share sale to be acquired by Maybank, for instance, and the majority don't think that Maybank is a right thing to do, because they still believe that your company can still grow, but you really want to let go, but because you do not have a preference majority, or you don't have a majority holding to decide, you have to let it slide and just, you fought really hard for the Maybank to come, for the Maybank deal to come, but then after that, if it's decided no, then sorry lah, you're not going to get it at all. So you have to deter. So that's why I'm saying that you really need to have a strong, even if you cannot afford a lawyer, read up on it. Read up what is a redeemable share. Read up on what a preference share is. Read up on every term that you're signing on, because it is very, very, very important, and it especially if you're starting up as the beginner, like when you first start with your first seed round and your pre-series A and all these rounds, right? They will become the foundation to how your investments will be in the future. So of course, if I'm coming in Series A, I look at your seed round, you are already like signing off all the powers, and all your rights are all given away to the investor. I'll look into it and I'll be like, I'm sorry, I can't invest into this company because you don't have any authority whatsoever left in your company, because you signed it all off. Then all your work that you've done for your company by then will be gone to waste. Or the Series A investor can say, wow, you signed off so many rights during your pre-seed. Okay lah, I can come in to get even more rights because I'm coming in with more money. So you have to really understand what kind of position you're in. And if you do believe in your product, in what you provide, then set your foot down, because trust in your own value proposition and in your product, and don't just because you need money accept everything under the sun.